Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books, where step by step we're going through all the different incarnations and all the pure devotees that have appeared in this universe over the whole history of the universe, and we're headed towards Krishna's pastimes in the 9th canto. Now we're in the 4th canto. And Lord Shiva, the Vaishnavanam Yatak Shambhu, the greatest devotee, the best devotee of Krishna, in case anybody wants to bring up who's God, Shiva or Vishnu or Krishna. Well, here's Shiva talking about it a lot. And we're going to hear more about what he thinks tonight. But for now, we're going to read Sanatana Goswami's prayers, glorifying Srimad-Bhagavatam, and giving us the tattva of the Bhagavatam, the tattva. All right. Srimad-Bhagavata Mahima Stotram from the Krishna Lila Stava by Sanatana Goswami. And it goes like this. Sarvashastra Dipiyusha Sarvavedaika Satpala Sarvasiddhanta Ratnaja Sarvalokaika Drikprada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana Srimad Bhagavata Prabho Kalidwandoditaditya Sri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master Srimad Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Sri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya Prema Varshaksharayate Sarvada Sarvasevyaya Sri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you, who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Sri Krishna himself. Marika Bando Matsangin Madguru Man Mahadana Man Nishtadaka Mad Bhagya Mad Ananda Namostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Asadu Saduta Dayin Adini Chochatakara Hanamuncha Kadachin Mam Premnarit Katayospura. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. You know, there are two terms that the Vedas use, and particularly the Bhagavatam and the Bhagavad Gita uses, like Krishna uses especially, to describe what's knowable. They're jnana and vijnana. So jnana means knowledge, generally kind of information, but vijnana means realized knowledge. Sometimes Srila Prabhupada described it as practical application of knowledge into one's consciousness, so that one can see through knowledge to see the actual truth of things. And the topmost vijnana is to be able to see Krishna face to face. So for this reason, Srila Prabhupada defined the Srimad Bhagavatam to be vijnana by nature, because these personalities who are talking about the form of Krishna and all the things, the powers of Krishna and the energies of Krishna and how it all works, they are actually seen him face to face. They're not saying philosophical, talking from a book. They've actually seen him face to face. Therefore it's called vijnana. Therefore, if you hear this literature with submissive oral reception, means with deep faith, with love, and without argument, without kind of intellectual fiddling with it, speculating about it. If you can just hear it straight through, you can get the same benefit reading it and hearing it as seeing the Lord face to face. And in the 7th chapter, 2nd verse of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Jnana teham savijnanam. So there's jnana teham savijnanam. Now I'm going to say, pravakshamana suyave. I'm going to say these things to you, because you're not envious. And now you'll know whatever is to be known. There's nothing more to be known. So now we're going to hear Lord Shiva continuing, because yesterday we heard these wonderful, beautiful descriptions of Krishna's form, top to bottom, all the aspects of his form and how beautiful they are, and how, it's the reality, in terms of our forms. We can see beautiful men and women, but Krishna's form and Radharani's form, they're like off the charts. They're like the perfect forms in every way. So now we're going to hear more about the energies of Krishna that Lord Shiva knows about. Okay? This is the 4th canto, 24th chapter. Prayers by Lord Shiva to Lord Krishna. Beginning with text 61. It's a long chapter, this chapter. My dear Lord, you have manifold energies, and these energies are manifested in manifold forms. With such energies, you have also created this cosmic manifestation, and although you maintain it as if it were permanent, you ultimately annihilate it. Although you are never disturbed by such changes and alterations, the living entities are disturbed by them, and therefore they find the cosmic manifestation to be different or separated from you. My Lord, you are always independent, and I can clearly see this fact. Purport. Very important statement at the end of this verse. And I can clearly see this fact. And that's what I meant by vijnana. Perceived knowledge, directly perceived knowledge. Purport. It is clearly explained that Lord Krishna has multi-energies, which can be grouped into 3, namely the external energy, the internal energy, and the marginal energy. There are also different cosmic manifestations, namely the spiritual world and the material world, as well as different types of living entities. Some living entities are conditioned, and others are eternally free. The eternally free living entities are called Nitya Mukta, for they never come in contact with the material energy. However, some living entities are conditioned in this material world, and thus they think themselves separated from the Supreme Lord. Due to their contact with the material energy, their existence is always troublesome, being always in distress. Did you find it?
I'm like worthless. Here you go.
Okay, that'll work. The eternally free living entities are called Nitya Mukta, for they never come in contact with the material energy. However, some living entities are conditioned in this material world, and thus they think themselves separated from the Supreme Lord. Due to their contact with the material energy, their existence is always troublesome. Being always in distress, the conditioned soul considers the material energy to be very much disturbing. This fact is explained by a Vaishnava Kavi, or poet. Krishna Buli, Se Jiva Ananda Bahirmukha, Atayeva Maya Tare, Deya Sangsara Dukkha. When the living entity forgets the Supreme Lord and wants to enjoy himself independently, imitating the Supreme Lord, he is captured by the false notion that he is the enjoyer and is separated from the Supreme Lord. This material energy is therefore very much troublesome to the spiritual energy, the living entity. But the material energy is never troublesome to the Supreme Lord. Indeed, for the Supreme Lord, both material and spiritual energy are the same. In this verse, Lord Shiva explains that the material energy is never troublesome to the Supreme Lord. The Supreme Lord is always independent, but because the living entities are not independent, due to their false idea of becoming independently happy, the material energy is troublesome. Consequently, the material energy creates differentiation. Because the Mayavadi philosophers cannot understand this, they want to be relieved from the material energy. However, because a Vaishnava philosopher is in full knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he finds no disturbance even in the material energy. This is because he knows how to utilize the material energy for the service of the Lord. In the government, the criminal department and civil department may appear different in the eyes of the citizens, but in the eyes of the government, both departments are one and the same. The criminal department is troublesome for the criminal, but not for the obedient citizens. I'll repeat that. The criminal department, this is the criminal department talking over here. This is troublesome. That's the noise of Maya. Troublesome, disturbing, doesn't give peace. Yeah? Calling you. Do this, do that, have this, have that. Always causing the mind to be disturbed. Can't talk about something nice when Maya's screaming at you. Okay, the criminal department. No, but the thing is, when the police come around, the citizens feel nice. The law-abiding citizens feel safe. Well, I don't know about nowadays, but in principle. But criminals, they don't feel nice. So everyone's a criminal. So whenever there's the authority around, they're all kind of like. The criminal department is troublesome for the criminal, but not for the obedient citizen. Similarly, this material energy is troublesome for the conditioned soul, but it has nothing to do with the liberated souls who are engaged in the service of the Lord. Through the Purusha avatar, Mahavishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, created the whole cosmic manifestation. Simply by breathing out all the universes, the Lord creates and maintains the cosmic manifestation as Lord Vishnu. Then as Sankarsana, he annihilates the cosmic manifestation. Yet despite the creation, maintenance, and destruction of the cosmos, the Lord is not affected. The living activities, the various activities of the Lord must be very disturbing to the tiny living entities. But since the Lord is supremely great, he is never affected. Lord Shiva or any other pure devotee can see this clearly without being blinded by Beta Buddhi or differentiation. Beta Buddhi is another word name for separatism. For a devotee, the Lord is the Supreme Spirit Soul. Since he is supremely powerful, his various powers are also spiritual. For a devotee, there is nothing material, for material existence only means forgetfulness of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Text 62. My dear Lord, your universal form consists of all 5 elements, the senses, mind, intelligence, false ego, which is material, and the Paramatma, your partial expansion, who is the director of everything. Yogis other than the devotees, namely the Karmi Yogi, the Jnani Yogi, and Jnana Yogi, worship you by their respective actions in their respective positions. It is stated both in the Vedas and in the Shastras that are corollaries of the Vedas, and indeed everywhere, that it is only you who are to be worshipped. That is the expert version of all the Vedas. Purport. In a previous verse, Lord Shiva wanted to see the form of the Lord, which the devotees are always interested in. There are other forms of the Lord manifest in the material world, including Brahma and other demigods, and these are worshipped by materialistic persons. In the second canto, third chapter of Srimad-Bhagavatam, it is stated that those who desire material benefits are recommended to worship different types of demigods. And in conclusion, the Bhagavatam recommends akama, sarvakamo va, mokshakama, udaradi, tivrena, bhakti yogina, yajeta purusham param. The devotees, the jnanis, who are known as mokshakama, and the karmis, who are known as sarvakama, are all aspiring to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu. Even when one performs yagyas, as stated here, kriya, kalapai, he should always remember that the demigods are but agents of the Supreme Lord. Actually, the worshipful Lord is Vishnu, Yagyeshwar. Thus, even when different demigods are worshipped in the Vedic and Tantric sacrifices, the actual goal of sacrifice is Lord Vishnu. Therefore, in Bhagavad Gita 9:23, it is said, Ye pyanya devata bhakta yajante shadayan vitaha tepi mam evikonteya yajant avidipurvakam. Whatever a man may sacrifice to other gods, O son of Kunti, is really meant for me alone, but is offered without true understanding. Thus the worshippers of various demigods also worship the Supreme Lord, but they do so against the regulated principles. The purpose of the regulated principles is to satisfy Lord Vishnu. In the Vishnu Purana 3.8.9, the very same thing is confirmed. Varnashrama charavata purushena padak puman Vishnur aradyate panta nanya tat toshakaranam. Here it is clearly mentioned that the karmi, jnani, or yogi, in fact everyone, worships Lord Vishnu if he is actually expert in knowledge of the Vedas and Tantras. The word kovida is very significant, for it indicates the devotees of the Lord. Only the devotees know perfectly that the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vishnu is all-pervading. Within the material energy, he is represented by the 5 material elements, as well as the mind, intelligence, and ego. He is also represented by another energy, the living entities. And all these manifestations in the spiritual and material world combined are but representations of the different energies of the Lord. The conclusion is that the Lord is one and that he is expanded in everything. This is understood by the Vedic version, Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma. One who knows this concentrates all his energy in worshipping Lord Vishnu. Text 63. My dear Lord, you are the only Supreme Person, the cause of all causes. Before the creation of this material world, your material energy remains in a dormant condition. When your material energy is agitated, the 3 qualities, namely goodness, passion, and ignorance, act, and as a result, the total material energy, egotism, ether, air, fire, water, earth, and all the various demigods and saintly persons become manifest. Thus the material world is created. Purport. If the whole creation is one, that is, nothing but the Supreme Lord, or Vishnu, then why do the expert transcendentalists make such categories as found in the above verse? Why do learned and expert scholars distinguish between matter and spirit? In answer to these questions, Lord Shiva says that matter and spirit are not creations of various philosophers, but are manifested by Lord Vishnu, as described in this verse, Tvam Eka Adyak Purusha. So this is interesting. This means that the philosophers, they're only like describing a little part of what's available to see, and therefore they have different opinions about everything. I'll read that again. Why do learned and expert scholars distinguish between matter and spirit? In answer to these questions, Lord Shiva says that spirit and matter are not creations of various philosophers, but are manifested by Lord Vishnu, as described in this verse, Tvam Eka Adyak Purusha. Spiritual and material categories are made possible by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but actually there are no such distinctions for the living entities who are internally engaged in the service of the Lord. There is only a material world for those who want to imitate the Lord and become enjoyers. Indeed, the material world is nothing but forgetfulness of the original Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Creator of everything. The distinction between matter and spirit is created by the sleeping energy of the Lord, when the Lord wants to give some facility to those living entities who want to imitate the Lord in His enjoyment. It is only for them that this material world is created by the dormant energy of the Lord. For instance, sometimes children want to imitate their mother and cook in the kitchen. At such a time, the mother supplies them with some toys so that the children can imitate her cooking. Similarly, when some of the living entities want to imitate the activities of the Lord, this material cosmic manifestation is created for them by the Lord. The material creation is therefore caused by the Lord through His material energy. It is by the glance of the Lord that the material energy is activated. At that time, the three material qualities are set into motion, and the material energy is manifested, first in the form of the Mahatattva, then egotism, then ether, then fire, water, and earth. After the creation, the living entities are impregnated in the cosmic manifestation, and they emerge as Lord Brahma and the 7 great rishis, then as different demigods. From the demigods come human beings, animals, trees, birds, beasts, and everything else. Bless you. Hare Krishna. Chuta. The original cause, however, is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as verified herein, Tvam Eka Adyak Purusha. This is also confirmed in Brahma Samhita 5.1. Ishwarak Paramak Krishna Sachidananda Vigraha Anadir Govindak Sarva Karana Karanam. Those who are covered by the material energy cannot understand that the origin of everything is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. This is summarized in the Vedanta aphorism, Janmad Yasya Yataha. Krishna also confirms this in Bhagavad Gita 10.8. Aham sarvasya prabhavo mattak sarvam pavartate iti matva bhajante mam bhuta bhava samanvitaha. I am the source of all spiritual and material worlds. Everything emanates from me. The wise who know this perfectly engage in my devotional service and worship me with all their hearts. When Krishna says that he is the origin of everything, aham sarvasya prabhava, he means that he is even the source of Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, the Purusha avatars, the material manifestation, and all the living entities within the material world. Actually, the word prabhava, creation, only refers to the material world. For since the spiritual world is eternally existing, there is no question of creation. In the Chatuk Shloki of Srimad-Bhagavatam, the Lord says, Aham evasam evagre. I was existing in the beginning, before the creation. Bhagavatam 2.9.33. In the Vedas it is also said, Eko Narayana Asit. Before the creation, there was only Narayana. This is also confirmed by Shankaracharya. Narayana Paro Bhyaktad. Narayana is transcendental to the creation. Gita Bhashya. Since all the activities of Narayana are spiritual, when Narayana said, let there be creation, that creation was all spiritual. The material only exists for those who have forgotten that Narayana is the original cause. So what's the difference between matter and spirit?
Forgetfulness.
Go ahead, finish. Forgetfulness of Krishna.
Yeah.
Yes, forgetfulness of Krishna. That's what makes that's the difference between matter and spirit. That's why this is spiritual. It's being used exclusively for, Krishna consciousness. Therefore, this, whatever we have, that we actually are using for Krishna service, including our bodies, they're spiritual. The bodies of devotees who are always trying to serve Krishna all the time, whatever they're doing, they're spiritual. And therefore, when other people come in contact with them, they change. And when they speak to them, their hearts change. That's the difference. That's the measure of the difference between spiritual and material energy. It reminds us of Krishna. Text 64. My dear Lord, after creating your own potencies, you enter. My dear Lord, after creating your own potencies, you enter within the creation of 4 kinds of forms. No, I'll throw it. Sit down.
It's still good.
My dear Lord, after creating by your own potencies, you enter within the creation in 4 kinds of forms. Being within the hearts of the living entities, you know them and know how they are enjoying their senses. The so-called happiness of this material creation is exactly like the bee's enjoyment of honey after it has been collected in the honeycomb. Purport. The material cosmic manifestation is an exhibition of the external energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But because dull matter cannot work independently, the Lord Himself enters within this material creation in the form of a partial expansion, Paramatma, and He enters also by His separated parts and parcels, the living entities. In other words, both the living entities and the Supreme Personality of Godhead enter into the material creation just to make it active. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 7.5, Apariyam itastvanyam prakritim vidime param jiva bhutam mahabaho yayidam daryate jagat. Besides this inferior nature, O mighty armed Arjuna, there is a superior energy of mind, which consists of all living entities who are struggling with the material nature and are sustaining the universe. Since the material world cannot work independently, the living entities enter into the material manifestation in 4 different types of bodies. The word chaturvidam is significant in this verse. There are 4 types of living entities born within this material world. Some are born by way of an embryo, jarayuja, by way of eggs, andaja, perspiration, swedaja, and, like the trees, by way of seeds, udbija. Regardless of how these living entities appear, they are all busy in the pursuit of sense enjoyment. The materialistic scientist's contention that living entities other than human beings have no soul is nullified herein. Whether they are born through an embryo, eggs, perspiration, or seeds, all living entities in the 8,400,000 species of life are parts and parcels of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and each, therefore, is an individual, spiritual spark and soul. The Supreme Personality of Godhead always also remains within the heart of a living entity, regardless of whether the living entity is a man, animal, tree, germ, or microbe. The Lord resides in everyone's heart, and because all living entities who come to this material world do so in order to fulfill their desire for sense enjoyment, the Lord directs the living entities to enjoy their senses. Thus the Paramatma, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, knows everyone's desires. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 15:15, Sarvasya chaham ridi sanavisto matak smritir jnanam apohanam cha. I am seated in everyone's heart, and from me come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. Remaining within the hearts of all living entities, the Lord bestows remembrance by which the living entities can enjoy certain things. Thus the living entities create their enjoyable honeycombs and then enjoy them. The example of bees is appropriate because when bees try to enjoy their honeycomb, they have to suffer the bites of other bees. Because bees bite one another when they enjoy honey, they are not exclusively enjoying the sweetness of the honey, for there is also suffering. In other words, the living entities are subjected to the pains and pleasures of material enjoyment, whereas the Supreme Personality of Godhead, knowing their plans for sense enjoyment, is aloof from them. In the Upanishads, the example is given of two birds sitting on a tree. One bird, the jiva, or living entity, is enjoying the fruits of that tree, and the other bird, Paramatma, is simply witnessing. In the Bhagavad Gita 13:23, the Supreme Personality of Godhead as Paramatma is described as Upadreshta, the overseer, and Anumanta, the permitter. Thus the Lord simply witnesses and gives the living entity sanction for sense enjoyment. It is the Paramatma also who gives the intelligence by which the bees can construct a hive, collect honey from various flowers, store it, and enjoy it. Although the Paramatma is aloof from the living entities, he knows their intentions, and he gives them facilities by which they can enjoy or suffer the results of their actions. Human society is exactly like a beehive, for everyone is engaged in collecting honey from various flowers or collecting money from various sources and creating large empires for common enjoyment. However, after these empires are created, the bites of other nations have to be suffered. Sometimes nations declare war upon one another, and the human beehives become sources of misery. Although human beings are creating their beehives in order to enjoy the sweetness of their senses, they are at the same time suffering from the bites of other persons or nations. The Supreme Personality of Godhead as Paramatma is simply witnessing all these activities. The conclusion is that both the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the jivas enter into this material world. However, the Paramatma, or Supreme Personality of Godhead, is worshipable because he is arranged for the happiness of a living entity in the material world. Because it is the material world, however, no one can enjoy any kind of happiness without inebriety. Material enjoyment means inebriety, whereas spiritual enjoyment means pure enjoyment under the protection of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Prabhupada ki jai. Text 65. My dear Lord, your absolute authority cannot be directly experienced, but one can guess by seeing the activities of the world that everything is being destroyed in due course of time. The force of time is very strong, and everything is being destroyed by something else, just as one animal is being eaten by another animal. Time scatters everything, exactly as the wind scatters clouds in the sky. Purport. The process of destruction is going on according to the law of nature. Nothing within this material world can be permanent, although scientists, philosophers, workers, and everyone else are trying to make things permanent. One foolish scientist recently declared that eventually life will be made permanent through science. Some so-called scientists are also trying to manufacture living entities within the laboratory. Thus, in one way or another, everyone is busy denying the existence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and rejecting the supreme authority of the Lord. However, the Lord is so powerful that He destroys everything in the form of death. As Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 10:34, Mrityu sarva haraschaham, I am all-devouring death. The Lord is just like death to the atheists, for He takes away everything they accumulate in the material world. Hiranyakashipu, father of Prahlad, always denied the existence of the Lord, and he tried to kill his 5-year-old boy due to the boy's unflinching faith in God. However, in due course of time, the Lord appeared as Nrsingadev and killed Hiranyakashipu in the presence of his son. As stated in Srimad-Bhagavatam 1:13-47, this killing process is natural. Jivo, jivasya, jivanam. One animal is food for another animal. A frog is eaten by a snake is eaten by a mongoose, and the mongoose is eaten by another animal. In this way, the process of destruction goes on by the supreme will of the Lord. Although we do not see the hand of the Supreme Lord directly, we can feel the presence of that hand through the Lord's process of destruction. We can see the clouds scattered by this wind, although we cannot see how this is being done, because it is not possible to see the wind. Similarly, although we do not directly see the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we can see that He controls the process of destruction. The destructive process is going on fiercely under the control of the Lord, but the atheists cannot see it. And they think that means that God is horrible, because they don't realize that there's a world that the things that aren't destroyed, and He's trying to attract us back there. We can't see it without this knowledge. Text 66, so we have to learn to see the world through this knowledge. See the presence, feel the presence, and then eventually feel protected by that knowledge. Translation 66. My dear Lord, all living entities within this material world are mad at their planning for things. I'll repeat that word. My dear Lord, all living entities within this material world are mad after planning for things. And they are always busy with the desire to do this or that. This is due to uncontrollable greed. The greed for material enjoyment is always existing in the living entity, but your Lordship is always alert, and in due course of time you strike him, just as a snake seizes a mouse and very easily swallows it. Purport. Everyone is greedy, and everyone makes plans for material enjoyment. In his lust for material enjoyment, the living entity is described as a madman. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 3:27, Prakrite kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvashaha ahankara vibhudatma kartaham iti manyate. The bewildered spirit soul, under the influence of the three modes of material nature, thinks himself to be the doer of activities which are actuality carried out by nature. Everything is enacted by the laws of nature, and these laws are under the direction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The atheists, or unintelligent men, do not know this. They are busy making their own plans, and big nations are busy expanding their empires. And yet we know that in due course of time, many empires have come into existence and been destroyed. Many aristocratic families were created by people in their extreme madness. But we can see that in the course of time, those families and empires have all been destroyed. But still, the foolish atheists do not accept the supreme authority of the Lord. Such foolish people unnecessarily concoct their own duties without referring to the supreme authority of the Lord. The so-called political leaders are busy making plans to advance the material prosperity of their nation, but factually, these political leaders only want an exalted position for themselves. Due to their greed for material position, they falsely present themselves as leaders before the people and collect their votes, although they are completely under the grip of the laws of material nature. These are some of the faults of modern civilization. Without taking to God consciousness and accepting the authority of the Lord, the living entities become ultimately confused and frustrated in their plan-making attempts. Due to their unauthorized plans for economic development, the price of commodities is rising daily all over the world. What to speak of housing? So much so that it has become difficult for the poorer classes, and they are suffering the consequences. And due to lack of Krishna consciousness, people are being fooled by so-called leaders and plan makers. Consequently, the sufferings of the people are increasing. According to the laws of nature, which are backed by the Lord, nothing can be permanent within this material world. Therefore, everyone should be allowed to take shelter of the Absolute in order to be saved. In this regard, Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 5:29, Bhoktaram yagya tapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram suridam sarvabhutanam yatma mam shantim richchati. The sages, knowing me as the ultimate purpose of all sacrifices and austerities, the Supreme Lord of all planets and demigods, and the benefactor and well-wisher of all living entities, attains peace from the pangs of material existence. If one wants peace of mind and tranquility in society, he must accept the fact that the real enjoyer is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Lord is the proprietor of everything, all over the universe, and He is the supreme friend of all living entities as well. By understanding this, people can become happy and peaceful, individually and collectively. Take 67. My dear Lord, any learned person knows that unless he worships you, his entire life is spoiled. Knowing this, how could he give up worshipping your lotus feet? Even our father and spiritual master, Lord Brahma, unhesitatingly worshipped you, and the 4 Manus followed in his footsteps. Purport. The word Pandita means a wise man. Who is actually a wise man? The wise man is described in Bhagavad Gita 7:19 in this way: Bahunam janmanamante jnanavan mam prapadyate vasudevak sarvamiti samahatma sidurlabaha. After many births and deaths, he who is actually in knowledge surrenders unto me, knowing me to be the cause of all causes and all that is. Such a great soul is very rare. Thus, when the wise man actually becomes wise, after many births and whimsical attempts at self-realization, he surrenders under the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna. Such a Mahatma, or learned person, knows that Krishna, Vasudeva, is everything. Vasudeva Sarvamiti. Learned persons always think that life is wasted until they worship Lord Krishna, unless they worship Lord Krishna or become his devotee. Srila Rupa Goswami also says that when one becomes an advanced devotee, he understands that he should be reserved and perseverant, chanti, and that he should engage in the service of the Lord and not waste time. Avyartha kala tvam. He should also be detached from all material attraction, virakti, and he should not long for any material respect in return for his activities. Mana shunyat, shunyata. He should be certain that Krishna will bestow his mercy upon him, asha bandha, and he should always be very eager to serve the Lord faithfully, samutkanta. The wise man is always very eager to glorify the Lord by chanting and hearing nama gani sada ruchi, and he is always eager to describe the transcendental qualities of the Lord, asaktis tad gunakyane. He should also be attracted to those places where the Lord had his pastimes, pritis tad vasatistale. These are symptoms of an advanced devotee. An advanced devotee, or a perfect human being who is actually wise and learned, cannot give up his service at the lotus feet of the Lord. Although Lord Brahma has a long lifespan, 4 trillion years can constitute 12 hours in a day of Brahma. He lives 100 years. Hare Krishna. Brahma is afraid of death and consequently engaged in the devotional service of the Lord. Similarly, all the Manus who appear and disappear during the day of Brahma are also engaged in the Lord's devotional service. In Brahma's one day, 14 Manus appear and disappear. The first Manu was Swayambhuva Manu. Each Manu lives for 71 yugas, each consisting of some 4,300,000 years. Although the Manus have such a long lifespan, they still prepare for the next life by engaging in the devotional service of the Lord. In this age, human beings only live for 60 or 80 years, and even this small lifespan is gradually decreasing. Therefore, it is even more imperative for human beings to take to worship of the lotus feet of the Lord by constantly chanting the Hare Krishna mantra as recommended by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Trinadapi sunichena, tarodapi suhishnuna, amanina manadena, kirtaniyak sadahari. When one is engaged in devotional service, he is often surrounded by envious people, and often many enemies come to try to defeat him or stop him. This is not new in this present age, for even in the days of yore, Prahlad Maharaj, who was engaged in the devotional service of the Lord, was harassed by his demoniac father, Hiranyakashipu, the atheists are always prepared to harass a devotee. Therefore, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu suggested that one be very tolerant of these people. Nonetheless, one has to continue chanting the Hare Krishna mantra and preaching the chanting of this mantra, because such preaching and chanting constitute the perfection of life. One should chant Hare Krishna and preach about the urgency of making this life perfect in all respects. One should thus engage in the devotional service of the Lord and follow in the footsteps of previous acharyas, beginning with Lord Brahma and others. Text 68. My dear Lord, I have a what, how many verses are there? It's in the 70s, isn't it? Huh? 79. Whoa. It's a long ways to go. Okay. I can't speed up the reading because it's so nice to read at this pace, isn't it? Nice to hear at this pace. Okay. 68. My dear Lord, all actually learned persons know you as the Supreme Brahman and the Super Soul. Although the entire universe is afraid of Lord Rudra, who ultimately annihilates everything, for the learned devotees, you are the fearless destination of all. Purport. For the purpose of creation, maintenance, and annihilation of this cosmic manifestation, there are three lords, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, Maheshwara. The material body is finished at the time of annihilation. Both the universal body and the small unit, the individual living the individual living entity's body, are susceptible to annihilation at the ultimate end. However, the devotees do not fear the annihilation of the body, for they are confident that after the annihilation they will go back home, back to Godhead. Chaktva deham punar janma naiti mam eti yort sorjuna. If one strictly follows the process of devotional service, he has no fear of death, for he is predestined to go back home, back to Godhead. The non-devotees are fearful of death because they have no guarantee of where they are going or of the type of body they are going to get in their next life. The word Rudrabhaya is significant in this verse because Rudra himself, Lord Shiva, is speaking of fear of Rudra. This indicates that there are many Rudras, 11 Rudras, and the Rudra, Lord Shiva, who is offering this prayer to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is different from the other Rudras, although he is as powerful as they are. The conclusion is that one Rudra is afraid of another Rudra because each and every one of them is engaged in the destruction of this cosmic manifestation. Except for the devotee, everyone is afraid of Rudra, even Rudra himself. A devotee is never afraid of Rudra because he is always secure, being protected by the lotus feet of the Lord. As Sri Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 9:31, Kauntiya pratijanihi name bhakta pranashyati. My dear Arjuna, you may declare publicly that my devotee will not be vanquished under any circumstance. We'll stop our reading for today. Hare Krishna. Only 8 verses from the Bhagavatam. How amazing the purports. What amazing. Okay. The mic is now open. This is called what? Open mic. Open mic. They have open mic. Okay, Marcella, go ahead. Do your thing.
I just have, I'm sorry, a simple question. It said that Brahma had a fear of death.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
And then in the purport after that, it talks about pure devotee not fearing death, and they purify through devotional service. So if Brahma is a demigod, right? How is it that he... Yeah.
Well, the essence of the question is simple, and that is that the point of saying that is that no matter how long a lifespan you have in this material world, you're going to die. And Brahma is aware of it. Like, we're also aware of it, but the material energy is so strong, we forget. Brahma doesn't forget very much. Sometimes he forgets, because he's attached to the material energy. He is a qualitative incarnation of Krishna, but he's not God in the sense of the Supreme God, but he's a jiva soul like us. But he's very special, the most powerful one. I mean, we're all ultimately have the potential to be that powerful, but he, due to his qualifications, and we get the position of Brahma by different qualifications, by performing 100 lifetimes perfectly without making one mistake, we can get the form of Brahma in the next life, or sometimes by pure devotional service, or sometimes by doing other things, mystic yoga. So depending on, how he gets his body, and sometimes, very rarely, but sometimes there's no soul in the universe that's qualified to do that, so therefore a Krishna will take that form himself and perform the service. So the Brahmas that are jiva souls, they live and then they die. Well, they don't die, the soul doesn't die, but the body perishes. So they're conscious of that. And therefore they still have a fear of death, even though it's a very long span of time. And it has something to do with the relativity that Einstein discovered. Well, he didn't discover, he may have still discovered, but it's... Anyway, the how do I say this? The life of the ant and your life is completely different. The ant lives 100 years, but his 100 years to us is just like nothing. A fly, mosquito, some insect, some germs live just a few minutes. So like that, our lifetime to Brahma is like that. It's just our life is like. The demigods are always, they're looking down and saying, and this is just theoretic, what's the word? Poetic expression. This is Martya Loka. These people are dying all the time. Look, there they go again. Look, there they go. They're always dying all the time. They're like, you're looking at a light at night in some countries where you see millions of bugs come to the lights. And then we wake up in the middle of the night, and then you see a whole bunch of them on the ground right there. The bodies just, because they get so attracted to the light, and they just go there, and some of them do their whole thing, have kids and everything just in one night. Yeah, all in one night. So Brahma, compared to us, is, living so long, and we're thinking, oh my God, 311 trillion years. But that's just one breath of Vishnu. And for Krishna, it's not even a blink in the eye. So therefore, when we think about how bad things are and how horrible and how can God do this, we should understand, to him, from his point of view, it's just a blink of the eye and we're coming back to him. And therefore, Prabhupada said, at one point, I remember one time he said, that when we go back to the spiritual world, it's like we just woke up from a dream. Few minutes. Oh. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to want to go back there again. When you have a nightmare, you don't want to go and have another one of those nightmares. Sometimes when you have a really nice dream, and you wake up, oh, it's just about, and then you go to sleep and try to go back to the same place in the dream. Doesn't work very well. Maybe sometimes, but it usually doesn't work like that. So it's kind of like that. Hare Krishna. Yes. Go ahead. No, you got the mic. You're doing good.
Okay, well, it's just another simple question. So, I'm understanding in Satya Yuga they have, the same in what I thought was impure qualities like envy or jealousy or anger, and I always think, I try to relate this to one's own experience with God, and when we're at a state of consciousness that we're very conscious of God, we don't experience fear or anger, or we experience this clarity when we're in that. And so how can it, I'm having, I guess, hard time understanding, what is spiritual power in relation to the different yugas, and how what's the difference between the states of consciousness? Are they more able to hold states of consciousness, or it confuses me to know that they experience such intense emotions, and yet they're different, living in a different yuga.
Very nice question. You have changed a lot since the first time since the first time I saw you and you came my office, and it was all like, and I know that, but I'm just saying that the level of her questions is to be serious. The level of your question is much deeper now than it was before. You're making tangible spiritual advancement. I'm very happy to see that. So here's the thing. The soul never changes. The soul is eternal. The soul is unchangeable. Avinasha tutad vidi yena sarvamidang tatam vinasham avyasya nakaschit katamarasi. He's unchangeable. He never, dies. But he perceives differently because of the modes of nature that are covering him. And because in Satya Yuga the modes of nature are predominantly good, there's also a mixture always of goodness and ignorance, always. And sometimes even now, goodness will be prominent in a person's life, and then they'll change, and there'll be ignorance, and then there'll be passion. And this, like that, the material world is always a mixture. So the Satya Yuga in the material world is never pure goodness. There's always some passion and ignorance. But because it's usually pure, the passion and ignorance are stronger. Just like when you put a light in a room, a lit room, it doesn't. But when you turn out all the lights and put the candle on, it becomes very beautiful and very, very attractive. Or another example is, if your room is very neat and clean and organized, and then something comes in that is not clean or that doesn't belong there, it immediately becomes apparent. You see it immediately. Whereas if you have a room that's just cluttered and dirty, and and then one extra thing comes in that doesn't belong, you can't even see it, can't even tell it. So in the Satya Yuga, the souls are the same, but when something, ignorance or passion, comes in, it's intense. But it's not that the soul comes to perfection and then doesn't have any of those emotions. The soul is made of emotion. The soul is made of emotion. It's made of Sat Chit Ananda. It's made of pleasure. It's made of truth. It's made of eternity. Those are the energies which make the forms in the spiritual world, including the soul. Whereas here all the forms are passion, ignorance, earth, water, fire, air, ether. That's what makes up the forms here, or mind, intelligence, the subtle body. But the spiritual body is not made of those kinds of energies. But desire and emotions and those things are there always, even in the spiritual world. In other words, there's more intense emotions there in the spiritual world. Because you had that training for a long time, you were thinking that to try to become away from those energies, away from the emotions, that way I can become free, I can become peaceful. But we didn't realize at first that the soul is actually the seat of those energies and those desires. But they're fulfilled when we're in the material world. When we forget Krishna, they're fulfilled by the material energy through the actions of time and the super soul. They sanction, as we read in the purport. They sanction and they observe. He witnesses and he observes until the soul becomes so frustrated after lifetime after lifetime of trying to enjoy in this material world and having all those emotions battering him around like a big boat that's in an ocean that's with 100-foot waves, and is getting his head cracked on the side of the boat every 5 minutes, and he just wants to jump off the boat, to get out of that kind of pain. He gets himself in bigger trouble. But in the spiritual world, all those emotions are there. There's separation, there's loved ones, there's everything that goes on here is going on in the spiritual world. But there the forms are permanent. And the emotions are not caused by death and fear of death and fear of separation or that kind of energy. Is a thunderbolt going to come any second and burn the house down? It doesn't happen. In the spiritual world, it doesn't happen. Those things don't happen. But there are other kinds of energies. There are emotional separations between the Krishna and soul sometimes, feelings of it. And then the feeling of emotion, of separation from Krishna, gives such an ecstasy. It's the highest pleasure you can imagine. Because it makes you feel more and more intense feelings, more and more intense love and devotion. And then when the meeting's there, it's like, oh, it's like, 4th of July is coming up. Well, a few more months. Hare Krishna. Is that something? That helps?
That's super deep.
Okay.
Okay. I'm going to read this from the 61st text. The criminal department is troublesome for the criminal, but not for the obedient citizen. Similarly, this material energy is troublesome for the conditioned soul, but it has nothing to do with the liberated souls who are engaged in the service of the Lord. Somebody can be doing, well, I'm going to speak for myself, probably not anybody else here, but there's times you can be doing service for Krishna and you're still troubled by the material energy, and maybe it's because it's not devotional, but sometimes it is and sometimes it isn't, because Krishna says, I am seated in everyone's heart, and from me comes remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. So my question is, how can we have Krishna's mercy to always remember and be in that knowledge? Because sometimes it's easy to get complacent.
Well, the execution of devotional service and the evolution of one's consciousness as one learns how to perform devotional service. In the beginning, generally, it's sometimes you are and sometimes you aren't. But as you practice, the devotion becomes more steady, and eventually it becomes fixed. And eventually it becomes overwhelmingly true all the time. So you're thinking like that now because the modes of nature are still influencing you, because you're not using them all the time in the service of Krishna. You're sometimes forgetting Krishna. When you remember Krishna all the time, 24 hours a day, Mam cha yogi bhachanina bhakti yogin sevate sagunan samatitaitan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. When you come to the point of doing devotional service all the time, 24 hours a day, then modes of nature no longer exist for you. They back off. Krishna tells Maya, okay, back off. And then Maya will come to you like this, is there anything I can do for you? Rather than, always trying to, break your back and cause you to forget Krishna.
But how do we make what we do devotional
You can't do it. You're not doing anything. You're not the doer. Yes. Your freedom in the material world is your desire. You can desire the right thing or the wrong thing. If you become fixed in your desire for the right thing, then Maya will go away. Okay, there's still something. I mean, you're still surrounded by the material world and you see all these things going on, but it won't disturb you. Here's the description of that state of consciousness. It may seem like far away now, but Krishna can help you get there really soon if you want. Depends on how strong you want it. There's this verse. From 7:5. Naiva kinchit karomi ti yukto manyeta tat bhavit pashan shinvan sprishan jigran ashnat gachchan supan chusan palapan visrijan nijan unmishan nimishan napi indriyan indriyarteshu vartanta ididarayan. A person in the divine consciousness, although engaged in seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, eating, moving about, sleeping, and breathing, always knows that within himself he actually does nothing at all. Because while speaking, evacuating, receiving, or opening or closing his eyes, he always knows that only the material senses are engaged with their objects and that he is aloof from them. So a person who is fully self-realized is aware. He's aware that those things are going on, but he doesn't have anything to do with it.
I noticed that in you earlier when you were drinking the water.
Well, I mean, sometimes. Anyway, Hare Krishna.
Separate, but it was cool. I was like, whoa.
Love is blind. What can I say? Hare Krishna.
There's an online question.
Online question. Okay, who is it? It's not Rati because she's in Mayapur, being ecstasy.
She's on.
Really?
Yes.
Hey, Rati. I tell you, she's a real loyal hearer. Most loyal hearer of everybody. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Okay. Oh.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, can you please explain how do we understand material enjoyment means inebriety, whereas spiritual enjoyment means pure enjoyment under the protection of the Supreme Personality of Godhead?
She put the purport there?
He just wrote which purport it was from.
What was the purport?
4:24:64.
Oh, what we just read. Don't let me forget. We're on 69. $69, $64, did she say?
Yes.
Just hold your horses, everyone. Calm down. You're getting hungry for the prasadam. This is what we learn. This is how we learn. Hearing attentively these questions and answers. Okay, I'm at 64. Is it in the purport?
Yes.
And what was it again? Read it again for me.
Material enjoyment means inebriety, liberty, whereas spiritual enjoyment means pure enjoyment under the protection of the Supreme Personality of God.
Yeah, that means that the forms in the spiritual world, your form, the God's form, the forms of all the other energies that make up everything, they're all spiritual. There's no inebriety, because there's no time, there's no space, there's no destruction, there's no old age, there's no death, no time and space. So there's a nice statement that Prabhupada says in the 5th chapter of the Adi Leela, where he says, the earth, water, fire, and air in the spiritual world is spiritual. It's not material. Because it's made of Sat, Chit, and Nanda. Everything in the spiritual world is conscious. Here, the soul is conscious, but our bodies are not conscious. So we're dragging, all of us are dragging around these unconscious bags and bumping into each other, and thinking that that's happiness, and then, they're all coming together as a family or whatever, like in a, bed and breakfast place, and then we all go our own ways, and that's one lifetime after another. That's the inebriety. We want this, we own this, we love this, we want to be with this, and then with time it goes. That's inebriety. But in the spiritual world, Krishna's form is eternal. So if you're always thinking of Krishna, your consciousness will change, and you will perceive a happiness that is not full of inebriety. It's not intoxicating. Intoxicating means, you think you're something you're not. You get all, wound up and intoxicated, and these people that are really intoxicated, like drug addicts and drunkards, in the streets of cities, downtown, Lower East Side, not Lower East Side, the Bowery, because I know the Bowery might be better now, but the way it was when I joined. Yeah, famous place, the Bowery. Prabhupada used to have to step over the bodies of drunks on the sidewalk to get into his flat, to get into his loft when he was living there. And some of them, they're so intoxicated that they're not aware that they're lying in a gutter. They're just in some other world. That's inebriety. So when you're with Krishna and serving Krishna, the pleasure that comes from that, the sense of happiness, the sense of well-being, the eternal sense of eternal existence, gives one real pleasure. It's only a matter of staying there in that consciousness. It's difficult in the material world because we're covered by Maya. We don't want to be covered by Maya. There's one very nice purport in the first canto where Prabhupada said, the soul wants to see this free light in the spirit. He wants to be free. That's his natural. Everyone wants to be free. And without this knowledge and without the ability to stay connected with Krishna in yoga, in bhakti yoga, in devotional service, then we're forced to always be confused and sometimes happy and sometimes agitated and sometimes peaceful, as the modes of nature, wash around. Now we can't go out for do anything because it's raining and pouring and lightning and thunder and all these things. It's not very pleasant. So we stay indoors. Anyway, I'm rambling now. You got the idea. The problem is the body, the material body. That's the cause of our suffering. But we're thinking it's really nice when we're in the material world. We think it's very nice. And it is nice, the human body, compared to a germ. I mean, it's a pretty good deal, You can do a lot more than a germ can. At least you got a chance to remember Krishna. So we should take advantage. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad-Bhagavatam ki jai. Prayers of Lord Shiva ki jai. Gaur Premanandi. See you tomorrow night, same time, same station.